Keisean Nixon is not going to apologize for the San Francisco 49ers injuries, and neither should you. Plus, our pal Zhao joins us on today's Locked On Packers.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. New customers, place a $5 bet, and you can get started with $150 in bonus bets. If that first bet hits, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Keisean Nixon doesn't want to hear the excuses. Doesn't want to hear about the injuries. Doesn't care about Brock Purdy. Doesn't care about Nick Bosa. Doesn't care about Trent Williams. Lily's out joining us on the show shortly. She'll be up. We're going to have fun. And the reason Keisean doesn't care is because the Packers went out and they played with their backup quarterback for 2.5 games. Started him on purpose for 2 of them. 49ers could have done that. They could have traded for Malik Willis in August. They could have built their team differently. They didn't have to start Brandon Allen. They could have started Malik Willis. They could have started, anyone. They could have started Josh Dobbs, who knows a thing or two about winning games on short notice in the NFC North. They could have done that. They didn't. They didn't do that. Oh, Trent Williams was hurt. Oh, I'm so sorry. You could have spent a 7th round pick 2 years ago on Rasheed Walker and you'd be fine now. You didn't do that. The Packers lost their All-Pro, their future Hall of Fame left tackle last year, and by the end of the season, they were one of the best teams in the league because they drafted Rasheed Walker. The 49ers could have done that. For whatever you want to say about Quay Walker, and believe me, I've said it all. The 49ers could have drafted him. They could have drafted him instead of signing Devondre Campbell. Walker had his best game as a pro by far on Sunday. 49ers could have done that. They didn't. They didn't. And so when you look around the league, go back to the Packers and Malik Willis. They lose Jordan Love. And they welcome the Indianapolis Colts to Lambeau Field, and they beat up on that team. They go over 200 yards of offense with a backup quarterback. Did Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason do that to Green Bay? Which was, by the way, and let's keep it a buck here, plenty of fans who were afraid of that. Plenty of fans told me, this could be 2019, the NFC Championship game all over again, even though there was nothing about either one of these teams that would lead us to believe that was in the cards. But the Packers actually did that to a team like 2 months ago. In this NFL regular season, they did it. They ran all over the Indianapolis Colts. And then they went to Tennessee with a week's worth of tape on Malik Willis. A good Tennessee Titans defense had already seen Malik Willis because he'd been in their freaking building. And the Packers put a beatdown on that Tennessee Titans team. A Tennessee Titans team that, by the way, upset the Houston Texans on Sunday, a team that had the second or third shortest odds to win the Super Bowl in the AFC, depending on where you looked before the season. You want to talk about an untalented team versus a talented team? How about the Panthers against the Chiefs? Yeah, the Panthers were pretty healthy, relatively speaking, but like even a healthy Panthers team mostly stinks. There's no Deebo Samuel in Carolina. There's no George Kittle in Carolina. There's no Christian McCaffrey in Carolina. And Kyle Shanahan sure as hell isn't calling plays in Carolina against the two-time defending Super Bowl champions. That's a one-score game late. The Panthers were in it. They had a chance to win it late. This is the freaking NFL. Every team has quality players. So when we talk about the quality of a win, we don't just look at DVOA and EPA per play, though you know that I love those stats. When we talk about a win, was it a good win? Was it a bad win? Was it somewhere in between? Was it a good loss? Was it a bad loss? Was it somewhere in between? Was it an embarrassing? All those things. The quality of the thing matters. That's why this is important to talk about. Short week against the Miami Dolphins, a team playing much better, by the way. It matters that the Packers took care of business. We called this the TCB game all week on the social medias. Taking care of business. But the business was only the business because this is a really good, really talented Packers team. That's not the same as saying a win is fait accompli, because it's not. It's not. This isn't college football where you can be a 28.5 point favorite and win by 40. It doesn't happen like that. Not in the NFL. In college, it does, although less and less, by the way. And that's good. It's good for college sports. It's good for the entertainment of the sport. Would it have been better if the Packers had beat Brock Purdy and Trent Williams and Nick Bosa and Brandon Ayuk 38-10? Would it have been better if they had done what the 49ers did to them in the 2019 NFC Championship game? Yes. What do you want me to say? Yes. But that doesn't mean that the win on Sunday means nothing. That's foolish. It's foolish. And it's foolish if for no other reason than go back and read the tweets, go back and read the skeets, the comments, go listen to talk radio segments. It didn't matter who was playing. There was scar tissue. There was sports fandom PTSD in Packers fans across the world over this 49ers team. Didn't matter if Brandon Allen was starting, if Brock Purdy was starting, if Joe Montana reincarnated from 1984 was starting. It didn't matter. They were worried about this team. And the Packers took care of business. And it wasn't just that they took care of business. They did it in dominant fashion, winning at the line of scrimmage, doing it in a way, in fact, the very same way that the 49ers had done to the Packers multiple times before. They avoided the disasters, the calamities, the catastrophes that had plagued them in years past. We're winning, but the special teams is going to now proceed to pee down its leg. Won't you watch? They didn't do that either. They tried to. Deebo Samuel, they were this close. It didn't happen. Listen to Keisean Nixon. And you got longtime listeners of the show know, everydayers know. Not my favorite player in terms of the play on the field. Like, I've been critical of Keisean Nixon before. I find him very entertaining as a personality. I like him as a guy. It has nothing to do with that. It's more that I have not understood the commitment to him. He's played better. He made a great play on Sunday. Now, it's worse that they're still playing Eric Stokes because Carrington Valentine very clearly is the better player. Eric Stokes looks very much toast. Keisean has been fine all year. He even joked he hasn't made a play since week 4. That's not a joke. Like, that's kind of true. But he made the play. A lot of Packers, maligned Packers, made plays. Lucas Van Ness, big plays. Where were the 49ers players doing that? They could have had some players do that. They could have drafted some players who, in rotation, second string, they come in and, I don't know, make a play. They didn't get that. Ricky Pearsall didn't do anything. Go back and look at the draft. By the way, the draft picks they used for Trey Lance, they just lit those on fire. It's not going to come back to bite him at all. Yeah, those picks, turns out, would have been really useful to have those picks instead of a quarterback that is no longer on the roster. You'd much rather have very useful player, and you might even go so far as to say you might rather have useful players with the draft picks that you could have used on any players versus having, you might trade Brock Purdy for those 3 first-round picks back if you could have them. Like, if the 49ers went out and wanted to trade Brock Purdy tomorrow, they're not getting 3 first-round picks for him. They're not. They're not. Be serious. Because what you have to do is you have to take those first-round picks, and you also have to give Brock Purdy $60 million. Because if you're going to trade 3 first-round picks for Brock Purdy, you got to give him $60 million. 49ers might not even want to do that, and they didn't even have to give up the picks. So the moral of this story is and stay with me on this, blowing out a team, any team in the NFL, because there's only 32, they're all really talented. The 49ers still had multiple All-Pros, Fred Warner, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, playing this game. They still had the best play caller in the NFL. It's good to blow out a team like that. I know that's controversial, and I don't mean to get too political and controversial on the show, but it's good to blow out teams, especially a team that has really owned you in the big moments over the last few years. Let's talk to our pal Liza about this. Let's see what she thinks. We'll talk to her coming up next on Locked On Packers. Do your loved ones live far away but wish they could be close to you? The last couple of years, I have given as a gift a skylight frame to grandmas, to mother-in-laws, to relatives that don't get to see my family, our extended family, my kids, very often because they live far away. And they love it. They absolutely love it. And to the point that, like, every time I talk to my grandma, for example, she tells me, you know that frame you got me? I love it so much. I love it so much. I got all my cousins. I've got a lot of cousins on my dad's side. And my grandma's 94 years old. God bless her. And she loves her frame. She gets to see the photos. I get to add it. My cousins are adding their photos. When I don't have time to add them, the photos that I send to the group chat, my mom will add or my dad will add. It's a game changer. And it's not complicated at all to set up. I helped my mother-in-law with it. We did it. We sat down. It took 30 seconds practically to set it up. Even the technologically challenged among us can make it work. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's skylight, SKYLIGHTFRAME. So skylightframe.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The Packers, they made it work. They made it work against the 49ers. They were 1.5-point favorites. It got to 6.5. I told you I thought it could get to 7. And it didn't matter. The Packers were going to cover all comers in this one. They are against the Miami Dolphins. 3.5-point favorites on the short week. So clearly ahead of the Dolphins. But weird things happen on Thursday. We know that. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Joining me now after a 49ers beatdown and with the Miami Dolphins just a few days away, Turkey Day, just a few days away from Fox 6 in Milwaukee. Lily's out to answer a cornucopia of questions this week. Lily's, how you doing?
Peter, I love what you did there. It's been a great week. And I think it's even better because we get Packers football twice in 1 week. And the second game obviously falls on Thanksgiving. So it's going to be a great day. I think it's going to be a great turkey day. And hopefully Jordan Love gets a turkey leg after another Packers win, but we shall see. But yeah, fun day at Lambeau on Sunday. I mean, it was a great day, great week. I love the holiday season. So I am doing well. So how you doing?
I'm good. Yes, Sunday was very enjoyable. There was that like 20 minutes of real time when it was started to get a little nervy. And you're sort of like, they can't really do this, right? Like they're not really going to do this. And then at the end, you're like, okay, this worked out about the way that it probably deserved to, for the Packers if they just played like a B+ game. And I think that's probably what they did, right? It's probably a B+ game for them. We still haven't seen their best game, right?
I think so. I mean, this was closer to a complete game, but it wasn't. I think this Packers team, if they had played a complete game, probably could have put up more than 38 points. Yeah. But this was on the right track to getting there, which is encouraging because, again, you always want to be playing your best football during this time of the year. So they're slowly getting there, but they're getting there. And that was encouraging to see. But it was closer to the version of what we like, right? Complimentary football. Both sides really getting after it and putting up points and scoring a season-high 38 points, and it's coming at a good time.
Yeah, not a surprise. 5 for 5 in the red zone means it's a lot easier to score points when you're not having to create these big explosive plays. As you were watching, what to your mind was the most crucial reason that they were able to score in the red zone?
Josh Jacobs. I even asked him last night, I said, what was the difference in your red zone efficiency? And he said, just give me the football. And I mean, he was right. He was right. I think he played a massive part in his Packers victory because 3 touchdowns, 106 yards rushing. They don't get the job done against the Niners if it wasn't for him. And the fact that I didn't really notice how little in terms of running backs run for 100 yards on the Niners. It's very rare that it happens. And so the fact that he was able to do so in the last back, having done so against them, was Aaron Jones. And so they weren't ready for what the Packers presented up front, especially in the first half, and he took advantage. And I just love the fact that even if there's not a lot of room that the line creates, he finds a gap, he does a little spin move, he gets as many yards as he possibly can. So I'd say Josh Jacobs certainly was the difference there for them in the red zone.
Yeah, just to put a bow on that, the first player in the last 55 regular season games to rush for over 100 yards on the 49ers, that was the longest streak. That 55 games was the longest streak since 1955. So we're talking about like pre-Super Bowl era. It had been that long since someone had gone that long with a 100-game rusher. So what the Packers did was really something historic based on this team. And that's not just injuries, right? That is force, that is will, that is Matt LaFleur, that is Josh Jacobs. This Josh Jacobs move, you talked about it, and him saying, hey, just get me the ball. He seemed, when he got the game ball, the great videos that we get to see after the game, almost emotional, talking about what it meant to him to be on this team, to be winning on this team. And you and I, after the Packers signed him, we were like, look, this is a guy who is the heart and soul of the Raiders, but he's going to replace the guy that was really the heart and soul for the Packers. All of that being said, it seems hard to imagine this having gone better for the Packers than it has, and outperformed at least my expectations. What about you? Like, is this about what you thought Josh Jacobs was going to be? Is he better? Is he worse?
I think this is kind of what they expected with Josh Jacobs, and that's not to diminish what he's done this season, but it's the fact that he is so good. You expect that level of excellence to translate and go from Las Vegas to Green Bay, and that's exactly what's happened. And the fact that there's really been no drop off for him on a new team, in a new town, has been impressive. And the fact that he is just so durable. And, he left the game with cramping. He was sitting at 99 rushing yards. I know he wanted to get over 100. He came running out onto the sidelines after being in the locker room for a little bit there, and you could tell he was ready to go. I mean, this is a guy who's durable. He's ready to take on the heavy, heavy workload that he's been given. And so far this year, he's done incredible with it. And you're right. He was emotional after getting that game ball. And you could tell just how much this team meant to him and just what this move meant to him. And he was asked in the locker room, do you think this move was the right decision for you? And he said, yeah, every week I feel better and better about this decision. And he's happy. And I can say his teammates really reiterate that sentiment. And you could feel the love for him just by the words that his teammates were saying after the win. So I think it was a win-win move on both sides, and give Brian Gutekunst an A+ on this signing. And also that of Xavier McKinney.
Well, and Brandon McManus hits the long field goal as well. Jason Hirschhorn, my colleague over at The Leap, he wrote that this was a win that they really earned in March. Because if you go back and look at the moves that they started, at least it started in March. Xavier McKinney, I mean, how many times this year, Lily, have we said that after the game? We're like, yeah, Xavier McKinney made one play or two plays that changed the game, and Josh Jacobs was the star on offense. It seems like this is now a formula for them. They're relying on these two players that you steal from organizations that might not be the best run, and you put them in a better situation. And the Packers, time and time again, are getting the best out of these guys. That's a credit to Brian Gutekunst, a credit to Matt LaFleur. These guys have been huge for them all year.
Exactly. And you also talk about the signing of Malik Willis. I mean, those four guys.
Absolutely.
They're not winning. They're not at, 8 wins right now if they don't get these players in the offseason and just the moves that they've made to bolster this team. So it's you think about the calculated moves of this organization to better the team in areas that they needed. And when you talk about Xavier McKinney, I mean, I'm sure the Giants would love to have him back, but too bad the Packers won't give him back, right? I mean, he is always at the right spot at the right time. He is confident. He knows he's a good player, and he shows out on the field every week. And I know the interception was impressive, but I also just kind of look at that 4th and 2, the pass breakup he had on Christian McCaffrey, because at that point, the Niners, if they'd gotten that first down, the momentum was on their side. They can go drive down the field, potentially get a touchdown, and we're talking about a different ball game. But just the fact that he was able to defer them on that drive and also pick off Brandon Allen, which led to a touchdown. I mean, that's some good football on Sunday, Peter.
Complimentary was the word Matt LaFleur. He said, we preach complimentary football. I think this is certainly, even if it's not the most complete game the Packers have played this season, you have to say it is the most complimentary game of football that they have played so far this season. All right, more with our pal Lily Zhao coming up here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. Listen to Locked On Packers, of course, but then find some time to spend it wisely to improve yourself, like history, economics, the great works of literature. I know when I read, I can just sort of feel myself getting not smarter necessarily, but in a different mind space, a different head space to attack the problems that I face in my world. Enriching yourself can do the same for you. Whatever it is that you like to read. Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic. Plus, there's art classes, music classes. All of Hillsdale courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Right now, go to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register, hillsdale.edu/lockedon. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen. Now for your second listen, go check out Locked On NFL, now with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. You are our resident vibes expert. We come to you now because for the fans, this was cathartic. It was an exorcising of demons with this team Did you feel that in the locker room as well? Was it something that there seemed to be a little bit extra juice getting a win like this? Obviously, you get a blowout win, you're always going to feel happy about that. But that it came against the 49ers. Did you feel that?
I did, and I'm sure there would have been a different level to that had this been the playoffs. But the fact it's regular season, it's still a win against the Niners and a team that has just been hard to beat, and a team that's ended your season the last couple of years in the playoffs. And so the guys certainly echoed that sentiment in the locker room. And I think a lot of guys didn't want to say it was a revenge game, and they kind of came into it as just another game, we'll win. But I just love the fact that Tucker Kraft said we went into it as a revenge game and we beat them. And so I love the candor there from him. He is just he's a great talker as well. So yeah, you could tell the fact that they enjoyed this win. They love the fact that they got one off their back against the Niners and proved, listen, we've been banged up all year. This is a team that's banged up, but it's the cards that they're dealt, and we were able to show up and show out and win. And, we've been injured this year as well, but we've gotten wins without our starting quarterback. So the Packers have made do, and they made do against a team they should have beaten considering how injury depleted the Niners were.
Matt LaFleur said he did not coach this game or approach this game any differently because of the short week. Now they've got to turn around that. I mean, that was a lot of car crashes on this offensive line, running the ball as much as they did, a physical game from them. And I think that is an important thing for them in the postseason to say, hey, look, we can do this. Just watching it, did it seem to you that they were trying to send a statement like, hey, you guys have bullied us and we're going to bully you back?
Absolutely. I think these games in the past, the Niners have just dominated in the trenches on either side. And so I think this was a big statement from the Packers to say, hey, we can play some bully ball too, and our offensive line can move your guys and you can't stop the run. And I mean, I think that was very evident, especially in that first quarter where they were having long drives, and it was because they were running the football at will. And so I like the fact that they were able to establish the fact that we can bully you too in the trenches and we can win because of our run game. And yeah, we know you have Christian McCaffrey on the other side, but we have a guy named Josh Jacobs in this offensive line who's just really pulling for him. And I just love the fact that Josh Myers was talking about how fun it is to block for a guy like Josh Jacobs. So again, the love is there on the offensive line. They know the guy behind him where even if they give him a little seam, he can find a hole and make defenses pay. So I like the fact that they're playing this style of football. Now, it might not mean that's how they play the Dolphins on Thanksgiving, but it's the fact that they can play this brand of football that's encouraging.
Oh, by the way, I think this is exactly what they're going to do to the Miami Dolphins as well. I think that is exactly what they are going to want to do. 15 missed tackles forced, according to Next Gen Stats by Josh Jacobs, the most by a player in the NFL this season. The 49ers had the worst game of missed tackles all season, according to Next Gen. So that is, I think, just an exclamation point on this idea of let's be physical. I want to talk about the Dolphins quickly here, understanding this is a short week, a short turnaround. They're playing much better football. Jalen Waddle looked like the guy that we have seen in years past. He has not been, as someone who has him on his fantasy team, has not been much of an impact player this season, but this offense has looked a lot better. Is this going to be a game where the Packers are going to have to score 30 to win, do you think?
I think so. And it's, you only play who's on your schedule. It's not like the Dolphins have played the toughest of opponents, but it's the fact that they've showed out in these games. It's what you have to do, right? It's whoever's on your schedule, you're going to have to beat convincingly. And they beat a bad Patriots team, but they did it convincingly. And it seems ever since Tua Tagovailoa came back from injury, he's really been at the best at his game in terms of just playing. And so 317 yards against the Pats, that's impressive. And you don't want to have a guy like him beat you with his arm, but he's also got that scrambling ability. And so I think this is a game where they potentially need to keep pace with the Dolphins to score, because we all know the fast guys on their offense and how quickly they can score. So I think the fact that the Packers were able to put 38 against a talented Niners team, it gives them confidence they could probably do the same, hopefully, against the Dolphins.
Here's the other part, Lily. It is going to be chilly on Thursday. Right now, forecasts say that at that time of night, we're talking about 20s, like mid to low 20s, certainly below freezing. Tua has never won a football game when it's been that cold. And so this is one of those like, hey, the warm weather team comes to Lambeau Field. Is this where we start to see the frozen tundra come out? Is this where we start to see that running game take effect? How big a factor do you think the weather is really? I mean, these are NFL players. How big a factor do you think it is really in a game like this?
I hope it's a big factor, but I feel like every time we bring up the weather for teams that play in warm weather, it doesn't affect them in the least.
It does seem that way, doesn't it?
It just feels like every time a team from LA or Florida comes to
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And they play like the better team, unfortunately. So, but, to your point, though, if he's never won a game in conditions that chilly, maybe that does have an effect on his grip, on, his just ability to kind of navigate the offense when he's a lot colder than he normally would be. And so hopefully
maybe the team speed, like the frozen ground, you don't get the same footing. Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, they can't get the same amount of game-breaking traction. Yeah, speed, because they can't get the traction. Like that seems to me like that's the thing you're hoping for if you're the Packers, right? Like the Packers don't need that. They can just bully you in the trenches. The 49ers kind of need to play that finesse game.
They do. And I think the fact that you potentially could have a slower offense because of the cold, I also do think the fact that this game is at home makes a difference, right? The Packers don't have to travel on a short week. The Dolphins certainly do. And you have the factor of the crowd. I think they were fantastic on Sunday against the Niners, and I know they're going to be really jazzed to see the Packers for a Thanksgiving game. And so maybe that's also an X factor. This team playing at home on a short week in that non-travel portion with their home fans behind them in a very chilly environment, maybe that gives them the leg up. And I think this will be a good game just for both teams, though, because again, these are two quality teams. How do they stack up? But hopefully the Packers do have that advantage in the cold.
It's going to have to be a playoff intensity. I think from here on out, the Packers third in their division, despite being 8-3, is crazy. I was trying to find a comparable, Lily. There really isn't a modern comp for a division this late in the season to have an 8-3 team be in third place. It doesn't happen, and so pretty remarkable. We'll see how it shakes out. We will see Packers Dolphins what happens, which means we will talk to you next week. Before I let you go, I think I asked you this last year. But your go-to, if I could only have one thing on my plate for Thanksgiving, what is it?
Oh man, that's tough. Can I have them all? I can't. That doesn't count. I do love mashed potatoes. It's a boring answer, but I love any kind of mashed potato.
Mashed potatoes are
gravy,
delicious.
some ham, some turkey.
I like to. The thing is it's the perfect utilitarian complement to the turkey, because even if that turkey's a little dry, and I'm lucky in my house.
It's not.
It's not. I don't even do the turkey, but you can use the mashed potatoes, and then you put those together on the same bite. Like now we're really having fun. Like that's the good stuff. So I'm with you. I think stuffing is underrated. That's where I am. I think I love stuffing. I used to, when I was a bachelor in my 20s, I would just make that solo. Like that would just be, I would just have not totally for dinner, but I'd like make a meat and then just have the stuffing in the off season. Just like make
stuffing or homemade?
Yeah. Oh, just stovetop. No, just stovetop.
Oh, okay. Stovetop. Okay. That's good.
It's delicious. All right. Thanks, Lily. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Peter.
All right. Thanks to Lily for joining the show. Awesome, as always, to talk with her. The Vibes Doctor, always in and ready to take the pulse, your temperature, all those things. That's what Lily is around here for us. All right, we've got more coming this week. Our normal crossover Thursday going to be happening, and then we'll be live Thursday after the game. Get that Thanksgiving turkey in, get that bourbon old-fashioned in, and have that in hand as we go over what hopefully will be a Packers win over the Miami Dolphins. Follow me on all the social medias. Like I mentioned, we're on Blue Sky now. Locked On Packers is on Blue Sky now. Still on Twitter. We're still, you want to be on Twitter? I want to be on Twitter. You want to be on Blue Sky? I want to be on Blue Sky. I want to be everywhere you guys are. That's the thing. I want to be everywhere you guys are. The rest of it, that's for I don't know. I just like to engage with you. I want to be where you are. I want to be where the people are. Okay. I will see you guys there. So go find Locked On Packers, go find me. And then, of course, YouTube, wherever you subscribe to podcasts, live after the game on YouTube, so you can stay Locked On Packers.